We're less than a week from the implementation of the carbon tax, and while this political football has been well and truly kicked around, I'm joined now by someone who should be able to help with the nuts and bolts of how business can best accommodate such a tax. Geoff Rousel is the Global Head of Commodities, Carbon and Energy at Westpac Institutional Bank. Geoff, welcome to the programme.
Thank you.
Well, I should say today that the New South Wales Minerals Council has come out saying this carbon tax will lead to 18,500 jobs in the Hunter region being lost by 2020, and that dirty brown coal is getting all the assistance in Victoria, black coal is not getting the assistance. Is this fair as we launch into a completely new playing field?
Look, it's certainly there's a lot of transitional assistance measures that the government has put into this scheme. The Jobs and Competitiveness Program, Coal Sector Assistance Package, others for the energy sector. The allocation of that is really up to government. I can't comment on that. We haven't seen the justification for each of the sectors. But on the whole, you need to look at how all the package fits together for individual companies. For us, our focus is on trying to make sure that within the parameters that a company is given, our clients are given, that they have all of the information about what this is going to look like in the future, how the scheme will operate, and developing practical solutions for, and financing as well, in order for them to manage the risks and to prosper in the environment.
Well, business does seem divided on what a carbon tax what good it would do. Those who have problems with it seem to be focusing very much on the $23 price. I'm just wondering how this is going to work eventually trading in a global market, because we're at $23, of course, Europe is under $10, and we're going to go down, aren't we? We're stepping down to a cap and collar where the floor is, what, $15 in a couple of years' time. So how do businesses manage this? Because at some stage, one would think if Europe is not near $15, there's going to be a big fall.
Look, you're quite right. There are, at the moment, 3 clear phases in the scheme. The first one is the 3 years of a fixed price, which goes up, starts at $23 and goes up at 2.5% plus CPI each year. Then there are 3 years where there's a price control. There's a floor at $15 and a ceiling which is set at $20 above the expected international price. And that also is forecast to last for 3 years, or legislated to last for 3 years. After that, yes, it's a fully floating price with no price controls.
So how are business handling this?
Well, most of the companies who have a direct liability are very large corporates. They're accustomed, in fact, very adept at dealing with moving prices, accustomed to looking at forward curves. And as a result, the forward curves that they might use in order to decide whether to go ahead with a particular investment decision does look a little unusual. It's not quite linear. It does step down. But really, once you've done that, the process is very much one that they're accustomed to.
Right. Well, Westpac's been trading in the European market, I think, since 2006. There is, of course, this huge overhang of permits in the European market. Was it mispriced? I mean, it's not a good sign looking at Europe as a precedent.
Look, I think in the European scheme, first of all, a lot of people confuse the test phase. There was a 1-year test phase, during which time, yes, there was an allocation, an over-allocation, and because it had an end date, in other words, the permits were not useful any time after the end of that scheme, then the price went to zero. People were willing to get anything for them. The scheme now has no end date, so people won't sell them at any price, they'll hold on to them. And as a result, we're seeing a little bit of that now. But the European scheme is operating really as it should. So we're seeing obviously significantly reduced economic activity in Europe, and as a result demand to be able to emit has dropped, and the price is doing what it should do in a market, which is to provide a safety valve, if you like, and go down. Okay. So it is operating as it should. But the other part in terms of it working is that we've seen a larger than expected increase in energy efficiency. So in that sense, you would regard that as being exactly what the scheme is meant to do.
A success. And to what extent, going back to the Australian market, are the price signals here actually driving any change in corporate behaviour?
Well, it's very difficult. It's early stages, so there is still some elements of uncertainty around. But on the whole, we are definitely seeing a very significant change in behaviour. And that change is that we've moved from people working out, am I ready to deal with the compliance obligations, the legal obligations that I'll have under the scheme, and now firmly focusing on competition, so competitively positioning themselves against their peers. And of course that's how a market-based mechanism is meant to work. So
for a real shift from traditional energy to clean energy, though, it's reported that the carbon price is going to have to be, what, about $50 a tonne? That's a fair way off.
Look, there's all sorts of reports about what that is. One of the things, so I think probably the thing that we find most useful, the best feedback we get from our clients who we're working with, is to potentially take it up a level and look at it as a higher level. This is basically if you think of a price on carbon as being, we need to re-incentivise investment in technology. So it is a global economic reform that's really inevitable, a mega trend if you like, and it's not going to go away. Companies, I think, are ahead, or businesses ahead of the public debate in recognising that, and they're already looking at the longer term undertakings that they can make. So people changing processes, people changing the chemicals they use in some of their production, and looking at, you know, disruptive technologies as well. They're spending more to invest in technology which might ultimately
So in
be
short,
the winner.
you think business are beginning to get the message?
Oh, very definitely, yeah. So this is, you know, the way we approach it is to say it's not going to go away. This is the same mega trend. It has the same underlying principles. Exponential world population growth, 1/3 of that world population urbanising, industrialising. We can't afford them to industrialise in the same carbon-intensive way.
Yes.
And as a result, we need to adjust. And once you recognise that that mega trend is there, the people who will prosper are the ones who recognise it early on and, you know, work out how they're going to prosper in that environment.
Rousel, it's a very big space you're in. Thank you very much for joining us.
Pleasure.